welcome to the Fit and Healthy Today show. And today, by popular demand, I'm going to be reviewing a metabolic diet and what it means. What I've done throughout the years is I've kind of set up plans, diet plans for people to help with healthy lifestyle changing. So, you know, for blood pressure, blood sugars, hypothyroidism. I worked with diet throughout the years as a professional trainer. And this particular plan that I have right here, I have found works the best throughout all my years of training for all different types of blood types, all different types of metabolic rates. It just seems to work. And it's a lifestyle healthy diet that you could continue to do forever if you chose to do it. And this is pretty much my diet with a few bits of pieces of chocolate in between. The diet in and of itself consists of, for women, 3 meals of 300 calories each with 2 snacks, 150 calories each. Now for the guys, we need obviously a little bit more calories, and you can adjust it accordingly, but 5 meals at about 300 calories each. And the guys that I put on this type of diet in the past, when I've had like this, they feel like they're forever eating, and sometimes they can't even meet this amount of calories because they feel like they're eating all day and they're eating so much bulk-wise. But the feedback that I get and have gotten throughout the years and with my own personal is the blood sugars balance, weight loss increases, energy increases, the metabolism, overall energy output, and the ability to burn fat, and just a total overall well-being. A side effect then, of course, is a decrease in inflammation. You're feeling better, you're moving better, both in bowels, every which direction, lymphatically wise. So let's kind of go over what the cost is, what the rules are, and what some of the diet suggestions are. Now, there are so many diets out there, and one of my customers brought to me a flyer from, I probably can say it, from Jenny Craig. It was so god-awful expensive for the regular working person. I don't know how a person could afford $30 to $60 a day for all the individual meals that you would have to purchase who's on a working income. A lot of people are desperate, and it is a way to lose weight, and it has so many calories restricted in that regard. But what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to get it right about $10 a day for women and $12 a day for men by eating only organic food. Now, this is very, very important because chemical estrogens, chemical pesticides, herbicides, they make you store more body fat. So it's very important, and an important component of this, to eat only organic. And local good health food stores are probably the best places to get your organics. You have to kind of watch the grocery stores or the major market stores because oftentimes you don't know the source of the organics. I know in my store, if you ask me, I can look up and I can tell you what farm it came from, whether it was from Ventura County or here local at some of our local farmers. So eating organic, preferably as close as you can in California, Oregon, Washington, and Texas, because the standards for organics are very, very high there. All right. When you're doing this diet, there's 2 things I ask that you do to help with the metabolism. A good multiple high in B's, and I know one, for example, that I wrote on here, works out to be 28 cents a day. 1,000 milligrams of ester C or buffered C, about 35 cents a day. So your supplements here, you're talking what, 63 cents? That are the bare bones supplements that you should be doing anytime, and particularly while you're dieting. Now we have the rules, and I already mentioned one of them. You need to eat organic food only, please, please, whether you're growing it yourself or buying it from a local health food store. Number 1 rule, never eat a carbohydrate by itself. And that includes breads, pastas, cereals, rice. Don't eat it by itself from a standpoint of your blood sugars and from a standpoint of spiking the blood sugars and storing more body fat. And for those of us who are perimenopausal or menopausal or who have hypothyroidism, boy, I'll tell you, you eat a carbohydrate by itself, you're going to store it as fat. You just will. Always eat a carb with at least equal amounts of fats and proteins, trying to achieve also 5 to 10 grams of fiber per each meal. So what that means is basically, if you were to draw out a little diagram, you'd have 3 circles, and they're each equal the same size. In this particular diet, I only want you to eat 1 meat meal a day. The rest of the foods are going to contain, the proteins are going to be either from eggs, no soy, because soy slows the thyroid down, and this is about metabolism, so we're not going to be doing much soy here. And then also we have to watch also too raw broccoli, raw cabbage, and raw cauliflower. Those you want to be sure to always steam. So when I mention vegetables, I would like those steamed or cooked. All the other ones are pretty safe to go ahead with. Meat is inflammatory by its nature, so the types of meats I want you to eat are like chicken breast, salmon, tilapia, turkey breast. We want to stick with fats in meats as low as we possibly can, because obviously we want to reduce inflammation as possibly as we can. And we're finding that plant source fats are one of the best ways to increase your metabolic rate. So that would be from like nuts and seeds, walnuts, almonds, pecans, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, Brazil nuts, whatever you're not allergic to. And in my particular case, I'm allergic to so many nuts. I do fish oil, or some people do flax oil as a substitute for the nuts in their diet. And then you're going to eat as little as starchy carbohydrates as you can. On the sample meals that I have on the next page, I think there's only one meal that I mentioned with starchy carbs, and it is with maybe a little bit of rice. That's it. Let's go into this. Now you can kind of modify this as best you can, but remember, we're trying to keep the meals 300 calories each with a balance of carbs, proteins, and fats all together in one meal. So if you're going to make that big pasta dinner with the meat sauce on it, with the salad on the side, don't expect that your metabolic rate is going to increase, okay? But if you have spaghetti squash and you pour over the nice little meat sauce on top of it with your salad on the side, you're okay. Preferably with ground turkey breast and chicken breast meat. That's where we're at on this. Remember, this is about increasing your metabolic rate and decreasing your inflammation. We have several examples here. Obviously, it's not limited to just these examples, but I thought it might be helpful for the audience to have some very specific things that you can do. Most people will ask me, give me some specifics. I need something tangible to grab onto. Now, you can get copies of these at the vitamin and herb stores in Lompoc, Bealton, Orchid, and Napomo. So we'll have these on hand if you need them. But the options now, this is the breakfast options. If you're noticing on here, I'm giving you about 20 grams of protein, about 100 calories or 20 grams or 25 grams with the fruit and the cheese. And then we've got the fat from the yolk and the cheese at about 10 grams of fat, which is another 100 calories. So we're right at 300 calories. Pretty much the same goes through with the rest of the breakfast meals. But if you notice, I say on here 1 slice of whole grain bread. I'm not talking about the one you mush into a ball. I'm talking like Ezekiel bread or Genesis bread or something that's a whole grain, not your typical what says whole wheat bread in the grocery store. This can also be like a muffin as well, with about a tablespoon of peanut butter, almond butter, and about 15 grams of some source of protein. And it could be a protein shake mixed with water in a shaker container, or 3 scrambled eggs leaving in the yolk. Once again, we're working with fats, lower carb, a little bit of carbs. There's a really good researcher and doctor by the name of Dr. Schwartzbein, and I agree with her research, and she's made it very clear that you need 60 to 100 calories of carbohydrates for each meal, because otherwise your body will turn to its muscle sources for fuel. So going, in my personal opinion, extremely low carbohydrate is not beneficial. Some little bit of complex carbs, in my opinion, is necessary in order to protect muscle and to increase your metabolic rate. Another idea, a smoothie. Now I've got a really good blender at my store, and I'll take a smoothie and I'll put apple, baby carrots, I'll put a little bit of spinach in there, grind it all up with a little bit of water, a few blueberries, that type of thing. And I've got a smoothie that's probably about 100 calories of carbs, about 10 grams of fiber, and then I do my protein shake on the side, in my case with a little bit of fish oil. But you can eat those 2 tablespoons. Now I want you to measure them, 2 tablespoons of nuts or seeds. I don't want you to just go like this and say, yeah, that's about right. And then you got about 500 or 600 calories of nuts. It's a small handful, and once you measure them and you've got a good idea, really be aware. Now I know most people say, okay, rice cakes are high glycemic, and they are. Some of us, however, are gluten intolerant, and so we cannot do some of these other types of whole grain things. So if you're eating 1 small rice cake, which is about 60 calories, and we're slapping on a little bit of coconut oil, which actually increases metabolic rate, cleans the liver, great for the brain, with a little bit of a protein shake and a half a grapefruit. Now grapefruit's a great fat burner. You can sprinkle just like maybe a 1/4 teaspoon of like some xylitol or some stevia or a little bit of sugar if you have to. Or you can have some other fruit, a mixture of fruit. In this particular case though, you only want it to be 1 small piece of fruit because you've got your rice cake. Now, the lunch and dinner options, remember the guys are probably going to be picking 1 of the meals from here, but they're going to be picking 4 of the meals from here, and the women are only going to be picking 2. This is a lot of food if you go through it. For example, we've got a protein shake with a nice big vegetable salad with a tablespoon of your favorite dressing. Please do not go low fat. I don't want something high sugar. I mean, you can go low cal, but I want it to have some fat in there because the whole purpose of this is, remember, fats, carbs, and protein and fiber. A veggie salad with 4 ounces of chicken breast or 2/3 a can or half a can of tuna with your favorite dressing and maybe some sesame seeds on top. That's going to get you a nice 275 to 300 calorie meal. An open face sandwich. A lot of people says, I can't eat, I'm not going to be able to eat my sandwiches anymore. Yes, you can. If you have an open face sandwich and you're piling your nice turkey breast or chicken breast meat on there with this 1 ounce slice of cheese and your tomatoes and your sprouts and your lettuce, and you eat it with a knife and fork. You can have your mustard and your mayonnaise on there, salt and pepper, make it good, because it's supposed to be a 300 calorie meal with fats, carbs, and proteins and fiber. We could do the same above, but in this particular case, we would probably substitute. I've got a really phenomenal vegetable soup that I use to diet before I do bodybuilding shows, and we have it at our store. We serve it actually in our deli, and I call it Heike's Healing Soup because it detoxes the body so well, but I'll be happy to give you the recipe if you come in. You can have burritos. A lot of my Hispanic community says, can I have burritos still? Yes. 1 Ezekiel or 1 low-carb tortilla. Preferably, if you do the tortilla, though, I would like it with some chicken, but you can do beans and cheese as a substitute with a little salsa and a side salad or a cup of the veggie soup on the side. Salmon, awesome. Combine it with some steamed vegetables, in this particular case, a teeny bit of rice, and you've got your complete meal, fats, proteins, and carbs with some fiber in there. And you're going to get those essential fatty acids, which are great to reduce inflammation. As far as I'm concerned, if you can get wild Alaskan salmon, I'd like you to eat that 3 or 4 times a week if you can get it. Hard to get sometimes, certain times of the year. Now the snacks, this is but a few, but you can kind of invent your own as best you can. But I want it to be low glycemic and always have some fat and protein to slow the sugar down. So in this particular case, celery sticks with peanut butter, with cream cheese. We've got, obviously you could eat celery all day long, and that's a freebie. You can eat lettuce all day long, that's a freebie. You can eat more than this if you choose with vegetables because it takes more calories to digest celery than what you're going to get actually in the celery itself. And then, or if you want to, you can make a plate of veggies and a tablespoon or so of your favorite ranch dressing and dip away. I mean, this is a great snack to have at a desk. To eat away instead of having that bag of potato chips, and there you are munching and crunching. Anyway, I hope this helps. We'll also have these appearing on YouTube in about 3 weeks. It's youtube.com//VHFILM. Next, we're going to be moving on to the fitness portion of our show. Thank you. Hi, welcome to the fitness portion of our show. And as promised, last week we had done a little bit of an exercise to help release and stretch the hip. This is called static back, and it's very helpful for releasing the hips and the lower back. If you've ever noticed, sometimes trainers, they'll have you put your legs in the air when they have you do abdominals in an attempt to try to force your back down. Well, in static back, in a position where you're about 90 degrees in a chair, what you're going to do is you're going to try and keep this 90 degrees, your butt up against as much as you can, straight down, vertical to the floor. And what you're doing is you're pushing your back into the floor. Your head should be down all the way. I'm keeping this up because of the show purposes. But you're going to breathe, and you're going to try and focus in on your breath and feel. You can even put your hands on your tummy to feel the abdominal raising. Because what you're doing then when you do that is you're pushing the back into the floor and you're releasing the muscles. I think this could be a very helpful exercise, particularly if you've been sitting all day and that back has just been on all different kinds of positions. This one could be very helpful for lower back and hip release. Next, we're going to be moving on to the research portion of our show. Thank you very much. Hi, welcome to the research portion of our show, and with us today is Ralph Turchiano.
Thank you for that intro. Well, first off, there's something called sick building syndrome, which means formaldehyde, volatile compounds, things along those lines, which are responsible for about, according to the World Health Organization's 2002 report, 1.6 million deaths per year, and or a total of 2.7% of all illness on the planet every year. Well, what they did was this. They studied what's called 86 indoor plants for what's called phytoremediation. And this was done at the Korean's Rural Development Administration Department of Horticulture and also reported and published in Hortiscience. And guess what plants topped out the list for best clearance of formaldehyde out of all of them? Well, you'll find out after the rest of the studies. Now, in a titled article called "My Dishwasher is Trying to Kill Me." What this happened here, and the reason it's called "Dishwasher is Trying to Kill Me," is because you notice in a dishwasher, there's the little rubber band part that goes around the side which seals the dishwasher to prevent water from going out. Well, that little rubber band part is an incredible accumulator of black yeast or black molds. Well, this was published in the British Mycological Society's Journal of Fungal Biology. And they went through 101 cities, through 6 countries, just so people don't say just something that's localized to a certain area. And they've discovered that 62% of all the dishwashers that in those homes contained certain molds and fungi. But of that 62%, 56% of those contain toxic molds, black yeast, such as Exfolia dermatitis, and if I can pronounce it right, E. fumiformis, which are extremely heat tolerant, detergent resistant, both to acid and alkaline water, meaning the dishwasher soap is not going to kill it. And the reason this is important, ironically, normally in nature, this Exfolia dermatitis is very rare, except on the band of your dishwasher, obviously. It's involved in what's called pulmonary colonization, especially in patients with cystic fibrosis, and can even cause fatal infections in healthy individuals. Something to think about. Find a way, check that band, see if it's clean or not. Don't let these molds accumulate. Hopefully over time they'll find ways to wipe it out or keep it from accumulating or basically growing at all. Maybe copper, silver, something in that band being incorporated. But interesting exposure, not your ventilation, your dishwasher. That's going to accumulate those toxic black molds. And here we go to Alzheimer's. And once again, coffee. Now remember, when I talk about coffee, I'm talking about cups of black coffee. When I talk about a cup of coffee, I'm talking about a cup of coffee, not a cup of coffee with some sort of melted ice cream concoction in it, which makes it taste like some sort of coffee flavored dessert. No, coffee. What they discovered is this. They published in the June 28th issue of Alzheimer's disease, they discovered that coffee is an incredibly powerful preventer of Alzheimer's. They said what happens is this. It decreases the brain production of what's called beta amyloids, this protein which forms these plaques. Through this process, what's called granulocyte colony stimulating factor, otherwise known as GCSF. This GCSF, when it rises, eats up that bad plaque that forms in the brain. And its caffeinated coffee provides a natural increase in this GCSF. They don't know why it does it because it's still yet an unknown component, but it does it. They also said, too, that it's not just 1.5 to 2 cups of coffee a day. It's 4 to 5 cups of coffee that requires to do it. They said no synthetic drugs, even though they're trying to find one, have been developed to treat the underlying disease process. They also said, too, we see no reason why an inherently natural product such as coffee cannot be more beneficial and safer than the medications used, especially protect against disease that takes decades to become apparent after it starts in the brain. They also said, an increasing body of scientific literature indicates that moderate consumption of coffee decreases the risk of several diseases of aging, Parkinson's, type 2 diabetes, and stroke. And now they found out it also works against breast cancers and prostate cancers. And an interesting quote by the researchers, which I'm actually giving them a lot of kudos for. They said, with pharmaceutical companies spending millions of dollars trying to develop drugs against Alzheimer's disease, there may be a very well and effective preventative right under our noses every morning. Just a cup of caffeinated coffee, as opposed to a lot of those other medications which many of our viewers are already unfortunately experienced with. And now to heart function. And once again, another one that's been said before, it's come up with another benefit. Pine bark and CoQ10. Now in this study, they used 2 particular types of pine bark. One otherwise known as pagnaginol, and another CoQ10 produced by a company called Kinika, which uses a natural CoQ10 manufactured by yeast. It's an ubidiquinone, not an ubidicarone. So be very careful not to buy synthetic CoQ10s. Get the Kinika one. Doesn't matter who manufactures it. It'll say it on the label somewhere with the trademark on the label. What they discovered is they took 15 milligrams of pagnaginol, which is a relatively low dose, and 50 milligrams of a Kinika CoQ10. And when they combined it, they had incredible benefits for the heart. They found it strengthened the heart, increased blood volume injected with each beat. As a consequence, the oxygen-rich blood supply to the organs improves the patient's physical and energetic profiles. They also said that they only took patients who already had heart disease, that their hearts were already at only 40% of the original capacity. They did only a 12-week study, 12 weeks, barely even close to 2 months. And this is the results. Systolic and diastolic pressure was notably lowered with the pagnaginol CoQ10 group from 139.2 to 133 to 82.3 to 77.3. Virtually no change in the placebo group. Heart rate was significantly lowered from 78 beats per minute down to 74 beats per minute compared to the placebo group, which was 79 just to 78. There was also They found it significantly increased the heart ejection fraction by 22.4% after treatment. And to top it all off, the people taking pagnaginol and CoQ10 combination, their physical abilities of patients improved substantially, as evidenced by 3.3 times longer walking distance on a treadmill. With that combination, edema went down as much as other things went down. Edema went down 72% in the pycnogenol group, CoQ10 group. Edema only went down 4% in the placebo group, not even close in the placebo. Remember, keep in mind, this was a single-sided study too. So the doctors knew who was getting what, but the patients did not. The study showed decreased blood pressure and heart rate, confirming results from prior studies using pycnogenol and CoQ10. Previous studies have found that pycnogenol significantly improves endothelial function and consequently improves hypertension as well as long-term consequences of renal function problems, kidneys. To date, pycnogenol has been investigated in more than 30 clinical trials related to cardiovascular health. This isn't one flash-in-the-pan study. This is multiple trials. I'd like to see some of your prescription drugs even come close to that. And now, we'll go to the dirty side of the track. And this one I really pulled off of Reuters, and this has to do with Avastin, which was used as a breast cancer drug. Well, the FDA looked at Roche's Pharmaceuticals drug Avastin, and originally when Roche submitted the studies to the FDA, Avastin extended the life expectancy or slowed the growth of tumors or cancers by about 5.5 months in breast cancer patients. Well, after the drug got approved, and billions of dollars in sales later, they discovered it only really slowed the growth of cancers by about 1 to 3 months, and with a 0 difference in survival of advanced breast cancer patients. Now, this, of course, came out after it was approved and resulted in annual sales of $1 billion for breast cancer alone, $6 billion for the drug total. All right, so the FDA said, hey, I want you to stop using the drug. We're no longer going to approve it for breast cancer use. Well, Roche obviously is thinking it's your patriotic duty to die for their company, considering that their company might now be considered too big to fail, as with many others, said, hey, that's going to cut into our sales. Yeah, it may cost our patients $8,000 a month, but insurance covers it. So what's the big deal? Well, they're going to fight tooth and nail. Main reason being, they said there's no other alternative. Well, why would you take something that doesn't work to begin with such things as holes and ulcerations and internal bleeding in the bladder, the veins, the arteries, and make people's lives miserable? Why? I mean, that makes absolutely no sense to me, especially since you do have other alternatives out there, just that they're not under a pharmaceutical label, like dimethylamine, beta-glucan, you name it. You can just go down an entire list of things. Well, they still want to strip it, and they're going to fight. Yet, ironically, they say, even if you pull a drug from us, 60% of insurers will still insure it, and most doctors will just prescribe it for your breast cancer as an off-label use. Unfortunately, I'm out of time. The one plant, it's called Japanese Royal Fern, the best one for removing formaldehyde from sick buildings. Well, thank you very much, and my time is up.
Thank you very much, Ralph. Very interesting. Once again, do your research, and if you need copies of the Metabolic Diet, check out the Vitamin and Herb stores. Thanks a lot for joining our show.